This is Greg Troutwine with Maritime Reporter TV, and we're very pleased to be joined today by Jennifer Hooper, the Senior Vice President, Industrial Applications Process Solutions at Siemens Energy. We're here to discuss the multitude of engineered custom solutions that are emanating from the energy transition, specifically battery and hybrid solutions in maritime. So, as you know far better than I, decarbonization is driving innovation in maritime and offshore oil and gas. And by that, I mean, can you put in perspective the attitudes and inquiries that you're seeing and hearing from ship owners for battery, hybrid, electric solutions today versus only a few years ago?
It has been a tremendous change shift, I would say. There is great focus in the sector, the maritime sector, that 3% of our global greenhouse gas on our planet today is emitted by the maritime sector. And there are roughly 91,000 ships in our world on our oceans and waters today, in which 81% of these are either small or medium-sized vessels. And these small and medium-sized vessels, they contain decades-old technology, which uses fossil fuel propulsion systems. And so what we are talking about with our customers on the street today is how they reduce their footprint on our planet. And this is one of the most exciting conversations to have because it's such a huge number that can actually retrofit their vessels in order to decarbonize. So we're talking about helping them convert from an electric or from a fossil fuel system, then utilizing electric or hybrid electric to save on fuel, maintenance, and of course, emissions.
It's one thing to talk about all these great technologies and solutions. It's another thing to put them in practice in the real world. And I know that Siemens Energy was involved in a pair of signature ferry projects, the Basto Fosen and the Norled Ampere. So for the purposes of this interview, can we take a bit of a deeper dive into the Basto Fosen? Can you describe the project, including the depth and breadth of the Siemens Energy offer, both technically and from an engineering support perspective?
So I have to say, I'm glad you brought up this project because it is one of the most exciting projects, and we are very proud to have been part of it. The Basto Fosen project is in Norway, and this is an all-electric ferry, and it is the largest electric ferry in the world. So it's always fun to be part of one of those firsts that's the biggest and maybe has some high technical challenges in order to solve with the customers. For the scope that we provided the customer, we did provide the electric propulsion system. We provided the energy storage batteries, as well as all the software, all the controls to operate the ship as it needs to, as well as safely. Safety is always number one priority. And then, of course, we also provided the charging system. So it is really the full package of electrification, automation, digital here for this ferry. This is a flagship example of how we support our customers towards a more sustainable future. The company will reduce their CO2 emissions by 75% in 2022 with this project, as well as reducing the diesel fuel consumption by 6 million liters per year. So again, this is deep in our core of decarbonization and just fantastic example, and we're super proud to be a part of it.
But when you look at this project in hindsight, what do you consider to be the greatest lessons learned that could be applied to future projects?
You know, this project being in Norway, the first lesson learned is probably a broader lesson learned for us globally in the world. And it's the example that the Norwegian government is setting for everyone else. Basically, where there is a strong political will, there is a way. The Norwegian government is proving this to the world right now. They have set high standards to meet a net zero, or very close to net zero emission target by 2030 for the maritime sector. And so that I just want to raise as one point that is a great lesson learned for us, is that the government certainly has a part to play in here. The second one is really around collaboration. The technology exists. And as I said, there are 81% of existing vessels that can be retrofitted. And so each vessel is going to have its own personality, its own needs. And it's really about the customers and ourselves coming together to understand what needs are present, and sitting at the table together, identifying what are the variables that we need to design for, what are the goals the project is trying to achieve, and then doing it together. So really it is not a cut and paste. The technology is there. We can tweak it to the needs of the customer. And that's of course, for an engineer, that's pretty exciting.
But in choosing an electric drive versus a traditional power plant, what are some of the vessel-specific design, construction, and life cycle maintenance differences that a ship designer, builder, and owner must consider?
I would say, from a layman perspective, when you go out to the vessel and you look at the vessel, it looks exactly the same. I mean, you won't see a huge difference between an all-electric ferry versus a diesel-run ferry. When you go down then into the engine room is when you really start to see the big difference. You don't have the big rotating equipment that you would have with fossil fuel run ferry or vessel. What you'll see is batteries. What you'll see is more of the electronic systems in an engine room, which is pretty exciting to see, because you feel like you've really moved, to the 21st century then, and that we're moving beyond the old technology. Some of the real pluses for the operators is, of course, the experience for the end customer of less noise. You don't have the smoke. You don't have just those experiences that disrupt you from being in nature, let's say, on the water. But from an operating standpoint, it's also less maintenance. If you don't have the oil, the grease, the rotating equipment, then, quite logically, you have then less of those maintenance needs. So from that perspective, it's really a win for the end user, especially if it's a ferry and you're going across the fjords or from island to island. It's a much better experience, but also for the operator, there is less maintenance required. I would say that additionally, as I mentioned before about design requirements, we're always looking at sustainability. And we're looking at the logistics, we're looking at the safety, we're looking at the economic goal of the project. And this is something that, these are those variables I was talking about that we continue to design specifically for our customers and with our customers. And overall, achieving greater flexibility in the design with our technology. So it feels pretty much like a win-win right now. I know that as construction prices go up, inflation is happening. It's always difficult to make that decision of retrofit, but in the longer run and in the long term, it's certainly less wear and tear and less long-term maintenance cost.
Like I said, I know that I see a lot of question marks in the industry as to which direction to go. And I can only imagine with the global heft of a Siemens, that many throughout the procurement chain lean on you for technical solutions and advice. With that in mind, can you give us a by the numbers look at Siemens Energy that gives perspective to the levels of engineering and support that you can bring to a project?
Yeah, with Siemens Energy, we really just spun out, I would say, from the big Siemens back in September 2020. We're really proud of the energy focus that we have in decarbonization at our core to energize society. So it's really exciting. We have roughly 90,000 employees. We're in 90 countries. We have roughly a 30 billion revenue. So it's a really fascinating and exciting time in the energy transition to be part of Siemens Energy. When we look at the maritime sector, and I've only been with Siemens Energy for 2 years now. Like I said, I came from oil and gas, and now I'm getting to learn this whole other fascinating world and being really at the core of decarbonization. I have seen the maritime projects increase within Siemens Energy significantly. This year alone, I think it's roughly 50% increase in order inbound on the maritime sector. It's amazing, fascinating, and just really exciting to be part of this transformation that's happening. What is a little bit harder to answer is that, these projects are so customized and we work so closely with our customers on what their needs are, that the projects can be anywhere from 1.5 to 3 years, depending on the scope and breadth of the project. And so kind of in the numbers is hard to do when you talk specifically about the average of a project or the teams, but we have certainly dedicated teams to the maritime industry, looking at the technologies and how to customize them for our customers. And it can take anywhere, like I said, from 1.5 to 3 years.
In all of our pages, when we talk batteries, the conversation often starts and stops with shorter point A to point B regularly run routes, and it comes to operating when it comes to operating on batteries alone or primarily. My question to you is, how do you see the market opportunities before you? And by this, I mean, what are the possibilities that you see with this technology?
Batteries are fascinating, and they have, the battery conversation, I would say, has just gone off the charts in the past couple of years of what the possibilities are, specifically in transportation and in mobility, and of course also in maritime, which is part of that. I have to say that when I talk to our technical experts, that the batteries are not really the issue here. The technology is not the issue. It's about scalability and really about how we design then the vessels to operate with regards to the scalability that you need. And of course, when we're talking about going all the way around the world, in a vessel or the huge cargo vessels. This is when you start talking about more of a hybrid system, and you're being more mindful about coastal waters or environmentally sustainable spaces. And you do have to make decisions today from a hybrid perspective. But as we saw in the ferry example in Norway, the charging stations, the different ways that we can maximize the use of all electric. I think we're at the cutting edge, quite frankly, and it's really about the operability. There are new vessel types that are coming into this space and asking for battery solutions and all electric propulsion solutions today. And these are container feeders, cargo vessels, and really exciting to keep with the sustainability theme is the offshore wind farm installers. And so they're truly looking at, if you're installing offshore wind platforms, that you're doing it in the most sustainable way. So, so I would say the technology is there. We just, we have to use it, and we have to go for it, and we have to continue to design together to maximize it.
Looking ahead, how is Siemens investing today to deliver to the maritime sector tomorrow?
We at Siemens Energy are looking, of course, we have product portfolio platforms that we continue to invest in across all of Siemens Energy. And then we have 5 field of action areas in which it is really focusing on decarbonization and energizing society for the years to come. So really pushing the envelope. And one of those fields of action is in storage. And this is, of course, where our Blue Vault battery solution lies. And this has high focus within Siemens Energy, specifically to support our maritime customers and our market there. So we have been doing that in the past for many years, and we will continue to do that. Additionally, we also are investing specifically in our automation system and our electrical systems and our digital. So our Blue Drive family continues to move forward and getting better and smarter with regards to availability, performance, serviceability. We also have our podded propulsion systems. And in addition to the storage and electrification, I will say that we are also looking at different fuels and bringing e-fuels such as hydrogen on board. And we're using our fuel cell technology in order to enhance a different way and a different thinking. So when I said it might be difficult to have batteries go all the way across the world unless we have, charging stations, we are looking at other forms of energy as well to support the maritime sector, such as e-fuels. And we are here. Like I said, I think one of the biggest lessons learned right now is this collaboration with our customers and our supply chain, and the real act of listening and co-developing together. And we as Siemens Energy look forward to continuing this journey because there's, in my mind, a long way still for us to go.